following documentary on the establishment of the Busselton JC's Oceanarium was filmed in 1969 and provides a nostalgic record of the community spirit of that time. In 1968, the Bunbury JCs ran a promotional meeting for the third time in Busselton. Jeff Kelly, a chemist, and Arne Jespersen, both unhappy Apex Club members, attended for the first time. They were told, "Sorry guys, we are giving up as each meeting we hold there are less Busselton guys interested, and we are now down to the two of you." Arne and Jeff said, "Wait a minute, this is our first time. How about running one more meeting and we will undertake to bring two others with us, and then if the six then bring two each to the following meeting, we will have a chapter." The Bunbury guys reluctantly accepted this, and they were totally blown away when we not only brought 4 others but had 36 in attendance. Busselton JCs began that night, interestingly with more members than Apex at that time. The story of the Busselton JC's Oceanarium began when the then President Arne Jespersen suggested capturing a shark and putting it in a 2,000-gallon tank on the back of a truck so the chapter could raise money at the 1968 Busselton show. Although this proved to be impractical, it spawned the idea of building a permanent oceanarium on the foreshore. Over a number of meetings, the idea gathered momentum, and a plan was put to the Busselton Council for permission for it to be erected just behind the changing rooms midway between the two jetties. By the time the chapter had obtained all approvals in 1969, Rob Griffiths had become president and a steering committee was formed. Over the years, records have been lost, but Eric Anderson, Peter Townsend, John Valentine, Brian De Morton, Keith Baxter, Trevor Fitzgerald, Larry Pember, Fred Passamore, Rob Pitts, Arne, Rob and a number of others were very heavily involved in the initial construction. As with any project, the physical start was celebrated with the obligatory close. At last the JCs were able to get on with the construction. One of the members, Keith Blond, a farmer, had donated a squatter's tank which was 30 feet in diameter and had walls consisting of 6-foot-high steel panels. The first job was to clear and level the site. With Eric Anderson operating the dumpy level and Max Wainwright assisting, the base for the tank was marked out. The next stage saw the steel panels lifted into place and bolted together with curved angle iron reinforcing for added strength. Take notice of the safety boots and protective gear we all wore. Today's health and safety folk would have a fit, especially with the kids mingling with the workers. As it no longer had a bottom, it was decided to have a large plastic pool liner made with a clear insert for half its circumference, so that glass windows could be installed to give the patrons underwater views of the fish. A raised boardwalk was to be built around the other half of the tank to enable people to look down on the marine life. By today's standards, the equipment available in 1969 was quite primitive. There were no angle grinders available, and we had to rely on oxyacetylene to cut the steel panels. When anyone asked how long will it take, the standard answer was tomorrow for sure. The next stage involved installation of the viewing windows. We were advised we would need 1-inch thick glass to stand the water pressure from within the tank. This was far too expensive and beyond our reach. We reasoned that there is not a lot of pressure at a depth of 2 feet, so we settled for ordinary window glass, which proved to be more than adequate as one of the windows was cracked from corner to corner several years later, and it stayed like that until the Oceanarium was finally closed. Keith Baxter borrowed his father-in-law's front-end loader, and Laurie Wallingford provided the truck to transport a load of sand for the concrete of the walkway around the tank. Busselton JCs came from a wide range of occupations and talents. This enabled us to efficiently deal with all areas of the construction of the Oceanarium. In addition, many members learnt new skills with their involvement in the project. Back at base, Rob Pitts was kept busy loading the cement mixer, and Keith Baxter used the loader to deliver the mix to the guys laying the pathway. With the tank walls installed and the raised wooden viewing platform in place, the next task was the construction of the pump house and pipeline to the ocean. To ensure the best environment for our marine life, we felt it essential to have fresh seawater circulating through the tank at all times. So a deep trench was dug across the beach to the swimming jetty. Unfortunately, there were no trenching machines available and it had to be dug by hand. This was a big job for a few members as the trench needed to be completed quickly as it could not be left open overnight for public safety. Bob Mead, Milton Riley and Rob Ness put in a sterling day's work with some help from others. The 3-inch intake pipe, together with the return pipe, was installed with the intake pipeline laid right out to the end of the jetty. This enabled us to draw the seawater from well above the sea floor and deliver the cleanest water possible. Installation of the intake pipe on the swimming jetty presented Rob Griffiths and Rob Pitts with constant interruptions, with swimmers and bathing beauties using the jetty at the same time. No doubt today the jetty would have to be fenced off under health and safety rules. With the completion of the pipeline, it was time to install the large capacity input pump and build the pump house, a task taken on by Jim Riches. We were very fortunate with the Oceaneering project as our membership also included a wide range of business owners which helped us source materials, and in most cases these were donated. As could be expected, the main power pole had to be relocated, so we sent our resident electrician, Brian De Morton, up the pole to disconnect the existing wires. Then Keith Baxter rode the jib to chain the pole high up so it could be lifted as close to upright as possible. Just as well the mothers weren't there to see the kids running around the site as all this was going on. The final step was the installation of the pool liner, followed by turning on the pump and filling the tank to the overflow. It was also time for celebration, and many of the wives and families came down to share in the excitement of the completion of the construction of the Oceanarium. At this point our fun began, as we now had to go fishing and bring our marine captures home alive, and this in itself presented a varying set of problems. We found plenty of fishermen able to tell us how to catch fish, but very few knew how to keep them alive once you caught them. With the smaller fish, we used fishing lines, and immediately a fish were pulled from the water, we dropped them into bins of seawater that we had aboard our small boats, and we only kept them in these holding tanks for short periods before transferring them into the Oceanarium. Catching larger fish required quite a different process. We would use a set line. This consisted of an anchor each end with 200 or 300 metres of rope between them. Then about every 3 metres we would have a short line with a large hook on it. The procedure was to go and set the line, feeding it out, baiting the hooks as we laid it across or near a reef. It was important to regularly check the line, as once a fish was hooked, we had to get it out of the water fairly quickly before it drowned. When we caught a shark or a stingray, it was important to get them in the boat and back to shore as quickly as possible, pouring buckets of seawater over them and keeping them going. Once back to shore, we often had to walk the sharks along the shallows to revive them before we transferred them into the tank. With larger fish, you have to avoid lifting them out of the water, as in some cases their internal organs break away from lack of support. So we used an old stretcher which we swung our catch onto before lifting them out of the water and into the boat before racing them back to the shore to be transferred into the tank. Now we had the fish in the tank, the yellow liner did not look nice on the bottom. So Keith Baxter shot off with the loader and brought back a truckload of sand which he proceeded to dump in with the fish. Unfortunately, he used dirty sand, and when we came down to check, found our fish staggering around in a thick sludge. Arne had a bright idea to shut off the overflow and overfill the tank so that the sludge and rubbish would wash over the side. This worked well, so we all went home for dinner. John Valentine was the first to return, and as he drew into the car park, was suddenly met by a wall of water with stingrays and a carpet shark surfing towards him. The water running over the side had slowly eroded the base, and suddenly the pool liner gave way, blasting a 4-foot hole in the ground as the water escaped. It was all hands on deck to rescue what fish we could and return them to the ocean, then set to and mend the damage and restock. Now that we had the oceanarium set up properly with clean yellow sand on its floor, it was time to get back to the task of stocking the tank. Our expeditions didn't always go as planned, as Larry Pember found himself having to pull John Valentine's boat back from Wannerup when its motor failed. Rick Anderson made his cray boat available for many fishing trips, and we had a lot of fun while we were stocking the tank. Busselton JC's Oceanarium operated for about 18 years and raised many thousands of dollars for the community. It also helped many young men develop new skills and lifelong friendship.